Hello everybody, this is KD0RVY, and we got a video here for you. As you can see, we got a set of tools here, and we are going to be building an antenna. What we're going to be using is this stuff right here. This is what's called ladder line, and we're going to be doing a ladder line 2-meter J-pole antenna with this. As you can see, I've kind of started already. That was so that the video didn't have to have me stripping the cable, but I will go through on what I did, just so you can see what's been done so far. This is a set of tools you might need for this. As you can see, got an X-Acto knife, wire cutter, Sharpie marker, tape measure, and a wire stripper. So we'll go ahead and this thing right here, and you can use a toothpick. This I got from my wife. It's one of those fingernail tools that I've used for a couple other things, but I'll show you where this comes into play. So we'll go ahead and get started. Also, you're going to need a soldering iron, as you may have seen. There's some solder here, and I have my iron over here. And we're going to be using this Bnc connector. I'm still debating on this. I've been kind of playing with it. I don't know if this is what I want to go with. It's actually made for ladder line. I think it's a little bit awkward. I've been trying to get it to work. I'm just not sure. I might just go with a standard Bnc connector and hang it from the end that I've seen typically done in most ladder line J-poles. So we'll see about that. And then of course you're gonna need some cable. This is I believe RG8. Yeah, pretty sure that's what it is. RG8 plus I've got this cable with my connectors on it. I could have made my own. I thought about making my own, but considering the parts I was going to get and everything, this ended up being pretty much the same price, and I didn't have to do the work, so I got that. So now we will go ahead and get started on the ladder line here, and I'll show you what I've done. The end of the cable typically looks like this, except that it'll look like this, except when I cut this cable, what I did is I actually cut it, like right up here, so that way I had these long leads to work with on the side. We need to take these, and we're going to create a short, which is to connect these two leads. And I'll show you from a scrap piece, I'll show you later on how I did that. But what I ended up doing to create that short and to cut these is I used, I just cut the cable with my wire cutter here, or you can use this one here. But I cut the cable, and then what I did is I used my X-Acto knife, and I just went along the edge down here and pushed it towards the lead. And then I kind of just, kept the pressure on and scored all the way around. You don't want to slide this because in there is copper. And as we all know, copper is a soft metal, and you don't want to try to cut through that metal. So, like I said, I'll go through on how I did that later on in the video so you can kind of see what I did. And if you have a hard time sliding that off, you can even score right down where the lead is this way, and be able to grab it with these and just peel it right off, and it'll come off. So that out of the way, so there's my folded leads right there. I did shorten them up a little bit, so just in case I do end up using this, like I said, I don't think I will, but it needs to be able to fit through there and then come back out the other way. And that's kind of where I'm having the hard time, is to be able to try to turn this around just to feed it back out. So I don't know. Then the next thing is you want to measure from the solder end there, your short, up about 4 inches. Now, I don't really have a way, they say that you should just make a temporary connection, use an SWR meter, and tune it in. I don't have an SWR meter, so I'm just going to go ahead and solder it in at 4 inches. You know, and I would think it should be fine. So most of the plans I've seen say about 4 inches, so I'm just going to roll with that. You'll see these marks, or you might see these marks down here. Ignore those. I was going by some other plans that were to say to measure up 1.25 inches, and then go ahead and solder in the points. Remove about 1 inch worth of material, then solder your points after about 1.25 inches up. So most of the plans I've seen are saying 4 inches, so I'm going with that. Not saying that, you know, this doesn't work. I'm gonna go with this. And you know, this whole thing is based on a bunch of different plans I've seen. I'm not going by any one particular set of plans. I'm just kind of going based on a few different ones I've seen, and making mine based on what seems to be the common set of plans here. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the soldering. So the first thing we need to do is to create our short. So that'll work. And we'll let that cool down a little bit. So now the next thing that we want to do is take our cable here and we will end up creating a short on both ends. Now we should be using for 2 meter, we should be using about 59 inches of this ladder line. I measured out to 60 just because what we're going to have to do is cut down some of this here to make our other short. Because we will be making, I did say it was a J-pole, so what we'll be doing a little bit later is measuring up 19 inches on one of these sides and creating a 1-inch gap. So that's going to be our J. So what we're going to do is the center conductor here is going to be going on the long side, and the shield is going to go on our short side. So we'll go ahead and get that set up here and solder those into place. Okay, now we're back. I went ahead and I got this soldered and that soldered on. I ended up using, I actually got some flux here. Having some issues with the solder that I'm using flowing right, so this is just regular Radio Shack soldering flux. I've had it for a few years, and so really kind of pasty and stuff. So once I got that on here, though, you can see the solder flows quite a bit nicer than what it was before. So you know, versus I actually had to use that on this end too to get it flowing right. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and trim this probably to about here, and get our center conductor in there and our shield soldered on to that. I'll be able to show you here how I did the other end. So go ahead, cut the end. Once you've done that, then what we need to do is take back the shield here. So this is I'm not sure what gauge this would be, but what I'm doing is on my wire stripper here, I'm doing the 10 gauge mark, and then and just making a mark. And that 10 gauge is just enough to kind of get through the plastic or the rubber here. So then what I did, and this is where you gotta be really careful, is I took my X-Acto knife, and this is actually how, or kind of how I just had an injury on my index finger. Can't really see it now, I'm sure, but I ended up stabbing myself right there with my X-Acto knife on this one, actually. So I'm a little, except I was doing it in a different direction, so. And then just kind of go back and forth with it. The big thing here is that we don't want to clip any of that shielding, or at least as little as possible. And then just kind of go back and forth. And that rubber, I mean, if you pick at it and stuff, that rubber will break. Now, you probably won't be able to just slide that off, so what I did is where I made that cut, and I just ever so lightly kind of score the top of the rubber. So you don't want to go all the way through, because otherwise you're going to cut that shield. And then grab this and then just kind of pull at it. And you may have to do it a few times and, you know, take it in pieces, but it will come off. Just like that. So you can see everything is intact. Now what we need to do to get our other piece in there is to push this back. You don't need to do it all the way, but just push it back enough to get like a little balloon there, and then grab your toothpick or whatever it is that you're going to use, and just kind of find a hole here. And just kind of open it up. Now we don't want to do anything too crazy yet, so just kind of open this up. And then take the corners that you kind of make downward to the point of where you can stick the toothpick or whatever you're using through, okay? And kind of push that down a little bit more. So now here's the trick. Now you don't need to push that all the way down, but the trick is to keep this here, fold this, okay? So I see how we have that arch there, and then you're gonna pull that back, and now all you're gonna do is you're gonna hold the shield back here with your index finger and hold this part of the shield down and kind of towards your index finger, kind of pinching it, and you're gonna end up taking this here through. and just kind of pull it. You don't need to, you know, just keep pressure on that shield and pull out the center. Make sure that when you get to this end though, that you don't let it tear any of the shield here. So be extra careful with that. Then you can just straighten that out and pretty much straighten this out the best you can. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You're probably not going to get it all completely straightened out, but all we need to do here is just twist. I just straighten it out a little bit so that way it doesn't have quite as many lumps in it when you start twisting it. So then you keep twisting until it's nice and tight. And there you go. So there's that. That's done. Now the only thing that we need to do here is to trim that back, and what I did is to make sure that we leave a little bit back, and we don't need much because this thing here isn't very deep. So probably even leave more shielding on than what I did on the first end there. So what I do is I kind of start with one size, kind of make a mark, and I just keep working my way down the gauges here on my wire stripper up until I think the second to last one, so that would be 18 gauge, and I'll kind of show you what I do or what I did do for that. So this is also another point where the X-Acto knife comes in. Now remember, that's copper and we don't want to slice it, so what I do is I just kind of push it, you know. I mean, I'm doing this with just my fingers here, and I'm not slicing, I'm just enough to score it. And then I just kind of bend it. And then I'll even go back to where I left off, just to be able to get a hold of it and pull it off. And there we go. So there's our end there. I'll just kind of test. Yeah, see, and you can see I got. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but I've only got about ½ an inch of this center conductor there. So, and that's not even going all the way in. I mean, or that is all the way in, but you can see that the center conductor, I mean, we're not even up to the shield. So could even cut that back a little bit, and I just might do that actually. We don't want to be up to the shield because we still have to, you know, put solder in there, but I think I might just clip it just a little bit. And then the shield, I think I'm going to loosen this just a little bit, so that way when I solder it, I don't have to worry about dropping solder. I can just solder right on this plate here itself. So I wanted to zip tie that down. Now since this is going to go in my backpack, I want everything to try to be at least as flat as possible. After all, it's kind of a roll-up style antenna, so I'm just going to feed the shield through that hole there. So that's kind of what it looks like without it soldered in. And like I said, I'm going to feed a zip tie through those holes, I think, just to kind of keep everything snug. I might even try to see if I can somehow squeeze one right through the side here and through here to keep that tight up against that. And then I think what I'm going to do here with these connections and these bare spots, I'll probably get some liquid electrical tape just to cover up those areas there. So we'll go ahead and get this soldered in here. Now if you got some thinner solder than what I'm using, that might be useful. Okay, so we got the center conductor done. Now I'll try to do the shield here. So now you can see that solder really gets soaked up into the shield there. We want to make sure that we have a really good connection on that plate. And looks like we do. So now, just to avoid any extra fraying, I'm going to put some solder onto the shield. Now, I haven't seen anybody do this before, so I don't know if this is a good idea, a bad idea, but I guess for the time, it seems like a good idea. Now, I am noticing I got a couple little frays, or at least one here. Okay, so now that I have that soldered, we're pretty much done. I went ahead and also attached a zip tie here, and like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and cover this with liquid electrical tape. And I also, since I had to kind of measure this out on the floor, you won't see it in this video, but I went and measured my 19 inches and made my 1 inch gap. Now that 19 inches goes from the bottom of the antenna to here. So, and then you make from here to here is your 1 inch gap. So I also went ahead and tested this, and everything tested out great. There just so happened to be somebody on the repeater and said I was coming in clear and strong, so that's good. I had my my upgraded antenna that I've pointed out in my other videos. I just had it next to me, but that antenna I have tried in the house upstairs by a window and had only worked once. So already this is already as good as that, if not better. I would say even better. So I'll probably be using this quite a bit outdoors and stuff, and I'm even going to try it indoors in my basement just to get an idea about how good this may or may not work. So like I said, otherwise it's going to be in my backpack as kind of outdoor use antenna, or you know, when I'm in remote areas, I want to throw something up in a tree or something. But still will be relatively flat. It's not too bad, so once I roll it up and stick it in there. Should be okay. So just to give you an idea, this is kind of what everything looks like. So you can see this tab here that the shield got inserted into one of the holes down here and soldered to, in addition to the solder that I added to the shield. Like I said, I haven't seen anybody do that before. I kind of figure, you know, to help with any snags while it's in the pack, in addition to any fraying. Even though it does look like a kind of a sloppy solder job, it is, you know, serving a purpose. So we'll see how that works. I also got this kind of bent down and over as I soldered that in there, just to kind of keep it flat and from snagging on anything. There's a zip tie. I was able to get that through the holes, so that should be able to keep this coax here tight against the board, in addition to keeping it in line here. So once I get this stuff covered with some black liquid electrical tape, it should look really good. So that should do it. Hopefully you guys found this educational. Like I've said in my past videos, I'm new to the hobby too, and just looking to share the experience that I'm having, and any of the projects that I'm doing to be able to help you guys out. So thanks again to everybody who has subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, please do, so that way you'll be alerted of any of the newer videos I do, in addition to just supporting the channel. So you know, it is something that kind of keeps me going. If the interest is there and I see that it's there, it keeps me wanting to do this for everybody. So thanks a lot again. This is KD0RVY 73.